The first thing you notice about Raven is her eyes. Not because they are beautiful in a conventional sense, though they are arresting, but because they are no longer the same color as anyone else's. Jet black, like pools of ink. It is startling, almost disorienting, and you cannot help but wonder why anyone would choose to tattoo their eyeballs. For Raven, the answer begins not in a strip club in Houston, but in the tiny, quiet towns of Texas where she grew up. Raven was born in Victoria, Texas, a town with fewer than 2,000 people. Her childhood, contrary to what her current appearance suggests, was not the story of neglect, abuse, or abandonment. She remembers a family that was present, supportive, and loving. Most people look at me now and think I must have been thrown away, that no one cared for me, she says. But the truth is, my whole family has always been in my life. My grandmother, my grandfather, my parents, they're still alive, still supportive. Thank God for that. Her early years were filled with what she describes as a good childhood. There was church on Sundays, dinners with family, and a childhood largely untouched by the chaos that people assume when they see her heavily tattooed face today. Raven insists that her religious roots never left her. I grew up Christian, she explains. People think I look like a demon now, but I believe in God, and yet, even in that seemingly stable upbringing, there was an undercurrent of restlessness. The small town felt suffocating. It was just too small, she recalls. I always felt like I wanted something different, like I was meant to stand out, not blend in. Her parents hoped she would follow a traditional path. Graduate high school, go to college, get a degree preferably in nursing, as her father suggested, and live the stable life they believed equaled success. By 2017, Raven had finished high school. She was the first of her sisters to cross the stage and accept a diploma, her family cheering proudly. Her father, a stern but supportive figure, urged her to enroll in college. He told me straight up, Raven says, if you don't go to college, you're going to end up homeless. You'll never have anything. College is the only way. At 18, Raven packed her bags and moved from Corpus Christi to Houston, where her father lived. He bought her a car, supported her first semester of tuition, and believed she was on the road to a respectable career in nursing. But Raven's spirit rebelled against that narrow vision. Within a week of starting college, she knew it wasn't for her. Sitting in a classroom filled with young women, who all raised their hands and said, I want to be a nurse, she felt herself trapped in what she called a hamster wheel. I couldn't do it, she remembers. I didn't want to be like everyone else. I didn't want to live in that box, so she walked away. Quietly at first, she hid the decision from her father for an entire semester, pretending she was attending classes. When the truth finally surfaced, the confrontation was explosive. Her father was furious, calling her reckless, ungrateful, doomed. But Raven, stubborn and independent, refused to return to that hamster wheel. She had no plan, only the certainty that she did not want to live an ordinary life. I wanted to be different, she says. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I wouldn't find myself in a classroom. The decision left her untethered. She was young, barely 18, living in Houston for the first time, with no clear direction. She was not yet a stripper, not yet the woman with tattoos etched across her face and ink seared into her eyes. She was, in her words, just a girl trying to figure out how not to disappear into normalcy. It was during this uncertain time that Raven's first serious relationship began, a relationship that would shape, scar, and ultimately transform her life in ways she could never have imagined. When Raven talks about her first love, there is no trace of nostalgia in her voice. No warmth, no lingering affection. What she remembers most is fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of the man who claimed to love her, fear of losing herself piece by piece until nothing remained. She was 18 when she met him. She had just left her father's home, had just abandoned the dream of college, and was vulnerable in ways she didn't yet understand. I thought I was grown, Raven says, shaking her head. But I was a child, and he knew it. At first, he seemed like an escape from the expectations she had run from. He was older, charismatic, and full of promises. He told her she was beautiful. He told her she was different. He told her she didn't need college, didn't need anyone else, as long as she had him. For a girl searching for direction, those words were intoxicating. But slowly, the mask slipped. His attention became surveillance. His affection turned to control. He took her phone, monitored her calls, cut her off from friends. He wanted me completely isolated, she recalls. He wanted me to depend on him for everything. The physical abuse began quietly, like a storm far away. A shove, a slap, a bruise hidden under long sleeves. Then it escalated. He would beat her, call her names, remind her that no one else would want her. He broke me down until I didn't even recognize myself, Raven says. I wasn't living anymore. I was surviving. Money became another tool of domination. Raven was working as a nanny for two families at the time, earning barely $400 a week. Every paycheck, she handed over to him. He claimed it was for his children. He told her she was selfish if she questioned where the money went. Over time, he drained more than $10,000 from her. I gave him everything, she says. I thought that's what love was. Even her body was no longer her own. He dictated how she should look. He insisted she cut her hair short and blonde, forbade her from getting tattoos, demanded she begin removing the few she already had. He told me I was ugly if I didn't look the way he wanted, Raven says. And I believed him. One night, he gave her an ultimatum: tattoo his name on her body or lose him. Terrified of being abandoned, she agreed. The ink was still fresh when he sneered that it was a test, proof of how stupid she was. He forced her to cover it with another design. The scar, both physical and emotional, remains. For 3 years, Raven lived in that cycle. She was trapped between fear and hope, clinging to the illusion that things might get better. Every day was the same, she recalls. He'd break me down, then apologize, then break me down again. By the time she turned 21, Raven had nothing left. Her father had told her she could not live at home if she stayed with the man. Her friends were gone. Her savings were gone. Her self-worth was gone. The final blow came when he smashed her phone during an argument, leaving her cut off from the world. That was my breaking point, she says. I realized if I didn't leave, I wasn't going to survive. Walking away was not simple. It meant leaving behind the person she thought she loved. It meant admitting the relationship had been built on control and manipulation. It meant starting over with nothing but her own determination. But in that emptiness, something shifted. The girl who had once been eager to please, eager to blend in, eager to obey, began to transform. Pain became fuel. Control became rebellion. The body he had tried to keep plain and ordinary would soon become a canvas for her own power. Everything I am today started with him, Raven admits. He destroyed me, but he also forced me to rebuild. And when I rebuilt into someone unrecognizable even to myself. What followed was not a sudden leap into empowerment but a series of small, defiant choices. Her first job outside his shadow. Her first night on stage at a strip club. Her first OnlyFans subscription. Each step was messy, complicated, and often painful. But each was hers. For the first time, Raven was choosing her own life. Raven's first night on stage felt like stepping into a foreign language she had to learn instantly. The lights were blinding, the music shook her chest, and every gesture seemed scripted by rules she had never been taught. The manager gave her a list: house fees, stage rotation, VIP charges, and then added, if you've got anything that scares customers, cover it. He meant her face tattoos. So each night, Raven painted thick foundation over the marks she had chosen for herself. On stage, she was a fantasy version of womanhood, but never entirely herself. They'll pay for seduction, she says, but they won't accept you if you don't fit their idea. Money was unpredictable. 3 sets with no tips, then suddenly a bachelor party throwing bills. A slow Tuesday that barely covered her house fee, then one generous client who paid her rent in an hour. The variance was survival by chance, not stability. OnlyFans promised steadier income, but came with its own trap. At first, it was simple photos, replies, playful messages. Soon it became a second full-time job, custom requests, pressure to respond instantly, customers expecting intimacy on demand. It's like being the product and the customer service desk at once, Raven explains. Boundaries blurred. In clubs, men tested limits with hands or words. Online, they threatened chargebacks if she didn't give more. She learned to block, to say no firmly, to call security when needed. People aren't monsters, she says, but desire without rules will drown you. There were nights that broke her, leaving with less than she had paid to work, crying in the rideshare, then forcing herself to answer late-night messages because the algorithm punished silence. Yet there were moments of grace, to a kind customer who tipped just to talk, a dancer who lent her makeup in the locker room, a message from a stranger saying, I know what it's like to be judged in a body. Over time, Raven built routines, budgets, savings goals. Walking to her car with a buddy, a list taped in her closet titled Reasons I Don't Hate Tomorrow. She created structure where none existed, proving to herself that survival could be organized. But one question haunted her: if I keep covering my tattoos to be accepted, what part of me will be left? She looked in the mirror after wiping off her stage makeup and felt like she was erasing herself. That tension planted a seed. The idea grew slowly, then relentlessly, to make her difference undeniable. If the world insisted on reducing her, she would mark herself in a way that no manager could censor and no customer could ignore. That thought led to a decision that would transform her forever. The idea didn't strike like lightning. It gathered like weather. Every shift ended with the same mirror, the same foundation rubbed over the symbols on her face, the same question she couldn't silence: if I must erase myself to be seen, who is the person they're seeing? That question hardened into resolve. She researched quietly, late at night with her cats asleep on her lap. Risks, methods, specialists. The warnings were real: injury, infection, permanence, but so was the pull of reclaiming what she could never disguise. The artist was blunt: once we do this, it's forever. Raven's answer was simple: good. The procedure surprised her. It wasn't the sharpness of pain. It was the softness after. When the first veil of ink spread under the surface, something loosened inside her, a knot she had been carrying since the first time someone told her who she must be. In the bathroom mirror, the black pooled across her sclera like a night tide, unnerving, undeniable hers. She cried, and then laughed, the sound brittle and bright. For the first time, she thought, I'm not looking at the girl he built. Outside, the world voted. Some reactions were quiet double takes in grocery aisles, children staring until a parent tugged them forward. Some were open contempt. In a pharmacy, a woman on speakerphone called her the ugliest demon I've ever seen. Raven leveled her voice. Scripture says don't judge. You'll see hell before I do. The woman recoiled. The line went dead. Moments like that multiplied, little cuts that healed into callus. Clubs made their positions clear, contacts to mask the eyes, or fear shifts. Raven compromised for a while. Bills don't bow to principle, but something in her refused to vanish again. She sought rooms that welcomed alternative beauty. When owners changed and policies reversed, she moved on. Online, where customers chose her precisely because she didn't look safe or soft, the response was the opposite. Subscriptions climbed, messages multiplied, curiosity turned into money. Visibility, she learned, has two edges. Family was complicated, never simple. Her grandmother, tender and devout, prayed for her and reminded her that God had made her perfect already. Her father, once certain that college was the only door to a real life, asked to borrow money when his business slipped. Raven didn't gloat. She took the lesson. Respectability is a costume, and sometimes it tears. Depression didn't leave when the ink settled. It never had anything to do with income or applause. On paper, she had one apartment, car, savings, independence. In her body, some mornings were still heavy with weather she couldn't name. She built small rituals: coffee before screens, lifting weights, journaling sentences no one else would read. Her cats insisted on presence: two small anchors stepping across the keyboard to drag her back into the room. People called it self-destruction. Raven disagreed. We're all temporary, she would say. At least I will look like I chose myself. The tattoos didn't erase pain, but they organized it. Strangers mistook the armor for hatred. In truth, it was devotion to survival, honesty, and an interior that refused their story. She kept returning to the butterfly. Everyone loves the wings. Almost no one wants to know what they eat. Beauty and revulsion share a body. People are the same, she'd say, adorable on the surface, terrifying in secret. She decided to reverse the terms: look dangerous, live gently. Be the person a child might fear for 1 second and a lonely woman might recognize for a lifetime. On nights when work was thin and her bank app glowed like a warning, she questioned everything. But the mirror offered an answer. She could stand inside. The eyes were an oath. Whatever room she entered, club, clinic, grocery aisle, she arrived as herself, not a version edited for easier consumption. If the cost was stares, whispers, fewer shifts, then that was the cost. She had already paid more to be invisible. Raven likes to say she lives in contradictions. She can step off a stage after hours of simulated desire, remove her heels, and feel lonelier than she has all week. She can check her account, see more money than she ever dreamed of at 16, and still struggle to get out of bed. She can be the most visible person in a room and still wonder if anyone has really seen her. Depression lingers, steady as gravity. It does not care about savings or applause. Some mornings, she admits, I stare at the ceiling and think, what's the point? Therapy helps a little. Her cats help more. She avoids drugs and alcohol to many family scars, but the weight of her moods never fully lifts. People think tattoos changed me, she says. But depression doesn't leave just because you look different. Relationships have been another battlefield. The men she dated after leaving her abuser often saw her as a wallet, a spectacle, or both. One stole her Xbox. Another threatened to leave unless she paid his bills. Some came from her subscriber base, assuming access online translated to access in real life. They see the brand, Raven says. They don't see the person. After enough betrayals, she decided she would rather be alone than bargain herself away again. Still, there is longing. A longing for someone who will love her as she is, without trying to reduce or consume her. I want what everyone wants, she says. Love, safety, being seen. For now, she pours that desire into her family. She tries to protect her younger sisters from paths like hers, reminding them they are allowed to choose differently. I don't want them to copy me, she explains. I want them to know they can build their own lives. The online world makes contradictions sharper. She earns a living by selling access, yet she knows that very access corrodes intimacy. She blocks dozens of men a month who cross lines, who want what she cannot give. It's not that I hate men, she insists. I hate entitlement. I hate when someone thinks money buys your soul. She dreams of investing, of building something that doesn't depend on her body. But for now the grind continues. Messages to answer, bills to pay, algorithms to feed. The stares in public no longer sting like they once did. She wears her tattoos like declarations, her eyes like shields. At the grocery store, people whisper. On the street, strangers cross to the other side. Sometimes she laughs, sometimes she ignores, sometimes she leans into the discomfort. Fear is a mirror, she says. If I scare them, it's because I show them something they don't want to admit about themselves. Raven measures her progress in small victories. Paying rent on time, saving enough to help her father when his business faltered, setting aside a little money for her sisters, cooking meals for herself instead of skipping dinner. It sounds tiny, she says, but those are the things that tell me I'm still here, still moving. She still returns to the butterfly. On the surface, delicate, admired. Inside, ravenous, violent, temporary. People, she insists, are the same. She chose to invert the roles, look like danger, live as kindness. When strangers call her a monster, she shrugs. Better to be a monster outside than inside, she says. Her final message is simple, almost cliché, but spoken with conviction. Don't judge. Judgment is an addiction, she explains. It makes people feel better for a second by putting someone else lower. But it's a reflection of themselves, not of me. For every insult she receives, she sends back patience. For every stare, she offers a smile, or silence, or nothing at all. I decided I don't owe anyone a performance, she says. I only owe myself honesty. Asked if she regrets any of it, the tattoos, the clubs, the OnlyFans, the pain, she shakes her head. Without all of that, I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't know my own strength. I wouldn't know what it feels like to choose myself. She pauses, glancing away for a long time. Then she looks back, steady. And I love myself now. That's the only win I need. For Raven, survival is not about avoiding scars. It is about choosing which scars are yours.